Y'all ain't gonna believe what's happening right now in the rap game. King Von's mom just broke her silence, and trust me, it ain't what you expected. Y'all seen that Lil Durk post from jail, wishing Von a happy birthday? Yeah, that one, all smiles, captions, and emojis. But let me tell you what really went down behind them screens, behind that camera, behind the bars. What started as a simple gesture, it blew up into something way deeper than it looks. See, Von's mom, Angie. She ain't the type to speak unless she's got something heavy on her chest. And when she finally did, it hit like a thunderclap in Chi-Town and all over the hip-hop world. People been talking loyalty, betrayal, family, and money. But y'all don't even know half the tension bubbling under the surface. There's a code in these streets, a silent agreement, respect, timing, who's holding it down when the cameras go off. And sometimes, that code, it ain't just broken, it's shattered. I got my sources close to the situation and what they told me. There's a story of love, loss, and the kind of anger that doesn't just vanish with a post. There's whispers about old debts, hidden texts, and conversations that never should have leaked. And now, Angie's voice is cutting through all that noise. She's calling things out, clarifying, setting boundaries. It's raw, emotional, and yeah, it's scary how much of this world only comes out when tragedy strikes. But here's the kicker. This ain't just about a birthday shout-out or two. Nah, it's about power, legacy, and the street rules that nobody writes down but everybody lives by. And when you peel back the layers, you start to see why every move, every word, every post in the rap world carries weight that's bigger than the internet, bigger than clout, bigger than fame itself. So sit tight, y'all, 'cause the truth Angie just dropped. It's way deeper than it looks. And once we break it down, you're gonna understand why loyalty and respect in the Chi-City rap game ain't just concepts. They're survival. Y'all need to understand something before we get too deep. King Von wasn't just another name in the rap game. He was a story, a street legend wrapped in talent and tragedy. And Lil Durk, he wasn't just a collaborator or a friend, he was family, or at least that's what the streets believed. But as with all things in Chi-Town, the line between family, business, and betrayal is thin. And sometimes it snaps without warning. It all started long before the posts, long before the headlines, long before Von's mom had to break her silence. Von and Durk grew up in the same corners, same block parties, same studio sessions that smelled like ambition and sweat. They saw each other through the rise, through the losses, through nights where the only light was the one from the corner store flickering across the pavement. And loyalty. That was the currency nobody could counterfeit. But loyalty is a tricky thing. It's tested when money comes, when fame hits, when people start speaking louder online than they do face-to-face. Von had a code, always had one, and he believed in showing respect to the people who helped him survive. But as his star rose, whispers started floating around about who was really in the circle and who was just playing the part. And for Durk, that meant walking a line between brotherhood and business, between history and what the world demanded from him as a chart-topping rapper. The posts started small at first. A birthday shout-out here, a repost there. But the streets read between the lines. People start looking at emojis, tone, and timing. One small gesture could be respect. One small misstep, betrayal. And when Durk went quiet, locked up, and then dropped that birthday message from jail, people lost it. Y'all think a simple post can't start a storm? Nah, it can. Especially when the legacy of King Von hangs heavy like a weight that nobody can shrug off. Von's mom, Angie, she saw the world differently. She didn't see the likes, the views, the bars, or the fame. She saw her son's life cut short, replayed in snippets on phones and TVs, debated like chess moves in comment sections. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't just words. It was an emotional hammer. You could hear the heartbreak, the frustration, the caution. Because in her eyes, it wasn't just about a post. It was about loyalty, about respect, about understanding the streets even when the cameras aren't rolling. People gotta remember that the Cheatown rap game isn't just music. It's a reflection of the streets of survival, of codes that date back before anyone had a studio. Every interaction carries weight. Every message can be read in layers. And when Durk's birthday post hit, Angie saw not just the gesture, but the implication. She knew loyalty is complicated. She knew public perception can twist intentions. And she knew that, sometimes, silence is louder than words, but it only lasts until someone decides to speak. What really set this off was context. There were private messages, leaked snippets that the public ain't supposed to see. Conversations between Von's team and Durk's circle that revealed tension bubbling for months, maybe years. And let me tell you, those leaks, they paint a picture that makes the online debates look like child's play. There's fear in those messages. There's ego. There's calculation. There's love. But there's also a hint of betrayal, subtle but there. You could feel it under the typing, in the pauses, in the words that weren't said out loud. Von's mom wasn't playing. When she finally spoke, it was a mixture of grief and authority. She wasn't just defending her son's legacy. She was reminding the world, and Durk specifically, that the streets remember. That loyalty isn't performative. That respect isn't just a caption. She said things nobody else dared to voice about money, about influence, about family ties that are stronger than fame. And the way she said it, calm, measured, deadly. It wasn't rage. It was a warning. And here's the thing the mainstream won't tell you. This ain't just about Von or Durk. It's about a system, a code, a way of life where respect carries more weight than awards. People move differently when that code is broken, when gestures are misread, when history is ignored. Every city has its rules. Every block has its hierarchy. And Cheatown, it's unforgiving. A misstep in public, a miscalculation in private, can cost more than clout. It can cost lives. The tension started escalating quietly. Nothing public at first. But insiders noticed. Clips of arguments in the studio, texts leaked late at night, voices rising over beats. It wasn't violence yet, but the energy was there, simmering under the surface like a storm waiting to hit. You said what? I told you about my respect. One source claimed Von's mom said to Durk's team during a conversation that got partially leaked, and the streets felt it. You could hear it in the whispers. You could see it in the way alliances shifted, and the escalation. It wasn't just emotional. There were financial moves, business plays, shifts in team loyalty. People start thinking strategically, like chess, because in the world, Von came from loyalty is currency and disrespect costs. And when Durk's post landed from jail, it ignited a spark that was already waiting for oxygen. Social media blew it up, of course. Fans, critics, people who never knew Von personally, all weighing in. But Angie, she wasn't concerned with the noise. She was concerned with truth, with history, with code. She reminded everyone, whether they wanted to hear it or not, that respect can't be faked. That loyalty isn't something you post online for views or sympathy. And that legacy, it's more than albums, more than streams, more than public perception. It's family, it's street code, it's honor. And when someone violates that, even unknowingly, the consequences ripple far beyond what the public sees. By the time she spoke, the story had already spiraled. Clips of her interview leaked online almost immediately, people dissecting her words like evidence. Some praised her courage, some criticized her tone. But underneath all of that, people felt the weight of her presence. She carried the grief of losing a son and the authority of someone who knows the streets inside out. And in that moment, the game changed. Not just for Durk, not just for Von's team, but for everyone watching, waiting to see what happens when loyalty and fame collide. But here's what people don't understand. This moment isn't just drama. It's a lesson, a window into how the rap world functions when the cameras aren't on. Behind the posts, behind the captions, behind the likes and comments, real lives, real rules. Real emotions move the way they always have. Angie's words remind everyone that power and respect are earned. And history isn't rewritten with a tweet or a jailhouse message. So, when y'all saw that birthday post and thought, ah, that's nice, they're still cool, know that there's layers most people won't touch. The streets read gestures differently. Mothers see intentions differently. And the legacy of someone like King Von. It's too heavy for public opinion alone. That post, it was a spark. Angie's response, it was a reckoning. And the ripples from that reckoning, they're still hitting hard, shaping relationships, testing loyalty, reminding everyone that in this game, respect is life, and life is fragile. Respect is life, and life is fragile. After Angie dropped her words, the streets went silent for a moment, like everyone was holding their breath. But silence never lasts long in Chitone, especially not in the rap world. Once the post leaked, once the snippets hit social media, the escalation was inevitable. People started digging, pulling at threads that had been quietly twisted for months. Texts, videos, clips, some real, some exaggerated, started surfacing. And with every new leak, the story got hotter, darker, more complicated. See, loyalty is a living thing. You can't just post it online and call it a day. Von and Durk's history was layered: friendship, mentorship, brotherhood. But with Von gone, people start questioning the intentions of those left behind. Every move Durk made was scrutinized. Every comment he dropped was dissected. And behind the scenes, the energy was tense. Nah, this ain't over, bro. Someone claimed they heard from Von's inner circle in response to the birthday post. You could feel the threat lurking in the calm voice. It wasn't noise. It was a warning. The tension wasn't just verbal. Sources close to both camps revealed that arguments flared in private. Studio sessions that once felt like safe zones turned into high-stakes negotiations. One insider described a night where voices rose over a beat, words sharp enough to cut. "You said what? I told you about my respect." Someone repeated the kind of statement that carries both grief and authority. Nobody walks away from that unchanged. People who thought they knew the boundaries realized they didn't. And it wasn't just about pride. Money, influence, and control started creeping in. Von's brand, his legacy, even his posthumous releases, all became points of tension. Decisions that seemed harmless to the outside world were loaded with meaning inside. Who got credit? Who controlled the narrative? Who got the first look at unreleased tracks? These aren't just business moves. They're signals in a game where loyalty and respect are everything. And misreading them, that's dangerous. Then there were the leaked conversations. Private messages from both camps hinted at friction that nobody outside the inner circle should have seen. Discussions about appearances, about who's handling the legacy, about what was owed to whom. They painted a picture of subtle, simmering betrayal. And in the streets, subtlety is often the most dangerous form of aggression. This ain't just about music no more, one source said. It's respect. It's legacy. And it's personal. Fans tried to interpret the posts, the comments, the timing. Some argued that Durk's birthday message was a gesture of love. Others saw it as a misstep, a public reminder of absence. But those closest to Von and his family, they felt it differently. They saw the weight behind the silence, the missed phone calls, the gestures that never came in private. And when Angie finally spoke, it wasn't about drama. It was about drawing lines, about telling the world that the streets have a memory. And that memory doesn't fade with likes or retweets. And just like that, the story got deeper. Rumors started swirling about tension within Durk's own camp. People who'd been loyal for years began questioning decisions. Alliances shifted quietly, like pieces on a chessboard. It wasn't just emotion driving these moves, it was strategy. Every decision, every post, every word became calculated. Because in the world Von came from, mistakes cost more than reputation. They cost trust. And without trust, there's nothing left. Angie's calm but deadly voice resonated with a truth most outsiders don't grasp. Respect isn't performative. Loyalty isn't something you can tag in a post. She reminded the world in no uncertain terms that the streets don't forgive lightly. And in the days after her statement, people saw the effect. Conversations changed tone. Interactions became more cautious. And even social media chatter carried a new weight. But here's the kicker. The tension wasn't just between camps. It rippled into the music itself. Artists and producers who worked with Von's team and Durk's team felt the heat. Every collaboration, every feature request, every studio session carried a subtle, unspoken question. Where do you stand? Some moved closer, some distanced themselves. And in a culture built on proximity and perception, those moves are loud. Even when nobody says a word. Then came the leaks that shook things further. A voice note from someone close to Von's inner circle surfaced online. It wasn't explicit, but the tone was unmistakable. Grief, anger, authority. People claimed they heard the subtext of warning. The kind of cautionary statement meant for insiders, but blasted to the world by accident or betrayal. Don't play with loyalty, it said, without saying it outright. And suddenly, fans, media, and other rappers were all speculating, trying to read between the lines of something nobody outside the circle fully understood. The street psychology behind it all is key. When someone dies young, like Von, the surviving relationships become magnified. Every gesture, every post, every omission is scrutinized. People start measuring loyalty in subtleties, in timing, in who speaks first and who remains silent. And in this case, Angie's voice became a central anchor, a reminder that respect and legacy don't bend to convenience or public opinion. By now, the escalation was reaching its peak. Behind closed doors, the conversations were intense. The anger, the fear, the love, it all mixed in ways the public couldn't see. One insider described a heated exchange where words almost led to action, where emotions ran raw and unfiltered. You don't know what loyalty means until it's tested like this, someone said, echoing the sentiment of the streets. But here's the reflection nobody talks about enough. This tension, while painful, also revealed a lot about leadership and influence. Lil Durk had to navigate grief, responsibility, public perception, and private codes all at once. Von's mom had to defend a legacy, assert boundaries, and communicate lessons learned from a life shaped by the streets. Both were operating under pressures that the casual observer can't imagine, and mistakes, real or perceived, have real consequences. And yet, even in all the chaos, there was clarity. Angie's words reminded everyone that boundaries exist for a reason. That respect must be earned. That loyalty can't be faked. That grief is both personal and public. And most importantly, that the streets, real streets, not social media streets, never forget. Every move has history, every word has weight, and every post can ignite a storm that changes lives in ways nobody outside the circle will ever fully understand. So as the leaks kept coming, as posts kept being dissected, as alliances quietly shifted, the story remained layered. Public perception and private reality weren't matching, and that gap created tension that fueled speculation and rumor. But those who lived it knew the truth. Loyalty, respect, and legacy aren't dictated by tweets or captions. They're dictated by actions, history, and the ability to honor a code that survives even after death. And that's why this situation is far from over. Every post, every clip, every comment continues to carry meaning. Every insider knows it. Every fan debates it. Every artist watching from the sidelines understands it. The game isn't just about music or fame. It's about survival, about memory, about honoring the people who came before you and protecting the legacy they left behind. The streets are patient, but they're not forgiving. And Angie's voice reminded everyone that in this world, the smallest gestures can carry the heaviest consequences. Respect isn't just a word, it's a responsibility. Loyalty isn't just an idea, it's a contract written in blood, grief, and memory. And when those principles are tested, even the strongest players have to pause, reflect, and adjust, or risk losing more than they can imagine. Things hit a turning point when the private became public, and the private wasn't ready to be public. Somewhere in the swirl of social media posts, leaked messages, and whispered rumors, the weight of King Von's legacy collided with the reality of Lil Durk's position, and for a moment, it looked like it could tear everything apart. But here's what the streets don't often say. Moments like this also define who survives, who leads, and who falls. Von's mom, Angie, stayed consistent. Calm, measured, but every word carried authority. She didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't plead. She reminded the world and Durk that respect is not optional. That loyalty isn't a hashtag. That legacy, once tarnished, can't be fully repaired. And she did it in a way that left a mark. One insider said, the way she handled it. That's how leaders move in the streets. Quiet, heavy, deadly. And when leaders move like that, people notice. Durk, meanwhile, had to navigate a labyrinth of grief, responsibility, and public perception. Being in jail during all this only amplified the pressure. Every post he made, every word he said, every pause on the phone call was analyzed. And in the streets, pauses speak louder than words. One source claimed that Durk had multiple private calls with Von's inner circle, trying to explain intent, offering loyalty where it mattered most. But intentions aren't always enough when perception has already shifted. And that's the thing about legacy in the Chi-Town rap game. It isn't just about music. It's about memory. It's about history. It's about proving, even in death, that Von's story isn't up for debate. Every leak, every clip, every online comment threatened to distort it. But Angie's intervention changed the narrative. She reminded everyone that Von's story is rooted in truth, street code, and family. And once truth is spoken, the streets respect it. The aftermath of her statements was immediate. Conversations that were tense became cautious. Collaborators reconsidered moves. Social media chatter slowed in certain corners because people recognized the weight of her words. And in the studios, people felt a shift. It wasn't fear. It was acknowledgement. A recognition that some boundaries aren't crossed lightly. One producer close to Von's team said, "You can feel it." The energy changed. Everyone's thinking twice. But here's what most outsiders miss. The story didn't just settle with anger or reconciliation. It layered itself into strategy, psychology, and street politics. Durk had to balance grief, responsibility, and leadership, a trifecta that isn't forgiving. Angie had to protect her son's memory while navigating a complex network of loyalty, power, and perception. And the streets. They watched, learned, and recalibrated. Every move, every gesture, every public post carried lessons for the people who live and die by the same rules. Dialogue leaked from private. Sources added layers nobody could ignore. You think this is over? It's never over. Someone from Von's camp allegedly said, "Respect don't expire with a post." And you could feel the tension in that line, quiet, but electric. Another snippet captured Durk responding calm but measured. "I know. I've never forgotten." Moments like that reveal more than headlines ever will. They show psychology, strategy, and street wisdom all at once. And that's the essence of this whole saga. This isn't just about a birthday post. This is about survival, about memory, about legacy, about understanding that in the streets, every move has a ripple effect. One misstep can cost credibility. One misunderstood gesture can spark conflict. And one powerful voice, like Angie's, can realign an entire ecosystem, shifting alliances, altering perceptions, and reminding everyone of the rules that hold it all together. Even beyond the immediate circle, the ripples were felt. Other artists, managers, and street figures who watched from the sidelines couldn't ignore the lesson. Loyalty isn't performative. Respect isn't transactional. Influence isn't granted because of fame and grief. It's a heavy currency that informs every decision when someone leaves too soon. Angie's calm but deadly delivery also created a moment of reflection for the broader hip-hop community. People started thinking about how the legacies of fallen artists are managed, how relationships are navigated posthumously, and how public gestures intersect with private codes. Her words weren't just a warning to Durk. They were a teaching moment for anyone operating in the spaces Von occupied. A reminder that the streets have memory, and that memory is long. The turning point of all this: recognition. Recognition that Von's life, his story, and his influence weren't just for entertainment or viral moments. They were lessons. They were examples. And anyone stepping into his world, intentionally or not, has to understand that the weight of legacy is real. Durk's post. It became less about intention and more about how the streets perceived it. And in Chi-Town, perception often dictates action. Aftermath didn't come in the form of chaos or confrontation. It came in subtle shifts. Teams reorganized. Conversations were recalibrated. Respect was reaffirmed. And Angie? She became more than a grieving mother. She became a symbol of authority, of protection, and of the enduring nature of street wisdom. She reminded everyone watching that influence isn't just earned on tracks or streams. It's earned in consistency, loyalty, and understanding the people who came before you. And this brings us to reflection, the part most people skip when they just see the drama online. There's psychology here. There's strategy. There's morality. Every action, every post, every comment is evaluated in multiple layers. Public perception, private intent, street consequences, family impact. And in this story, Angie's voice cut through the noise, creating clarity in chaos. That clarity taught lessons about leadership, grief, loyalty, and the responsibility of influence. By the end, the story wasn't just about Von or Durk. It was about the culture itself. About how the rap game, especially in the streets, operates with its own rules, its own ethics, and its own consequences. About how one mother's voice can reset the balance. Force reflection and remind everyone that the weight of legacy is not something to take lightly. And the lessons go further. Loyalty is fragile, but sacred. Respect is earned, but can be revoked. Influence comes with accountability. Grief shapes decisions. And legacy? It outlives all of us. This story, part real, part legend, is a blueprint for how street code, family, and fame intersect in ways that can't always be explained in headlines. So, as the dust settles, and the streets keep moving, one truth remains clear. Angie's intervention was more than a reaction. It was a statement, a recalibration, a reminder that the rules of loyalty, respect, and legacy never expire. And in a world where every gesture is analyzed, every post is a statement, and every voice carries weight, that reminder is priceless. And now it's on the community, the fans, and the artist still standing to reflect. To understand that the Chi-Town rap game is more than fame, more than money, more than social media. It's a network of respect, memory, and survival. And when someone steps out of line, intentionally or not, the response, measured or explosive, teaches everyone watching how serious the stakes really are. This chapter closes, but the echoes remain. Durk continues his path, navigating loyalty, legacy, and grief. Angie continues to guard her son's story, ensuring that it isn't diluted, misrepresented, or disrespected. And the streets. They continue to watch, to remember, and to enforce the invisible code that keeps everything in balance. The streets don't forgive easily. And in the Chi-Town rap game, they never forget. Every move Von made, every word Durk posted, every gesture by Angie carried consequences, and the ripples are still being felt. You see, what most people don't realize is that legacy isn't just about the music. It's about influence, relationships, and memory. It's about the unspoken rules that govern a world most outsiders can't comprehend. And when one of your own falls, the lessons become sharper, the lines clearer, and the stakes higher in the weeks following Angie's statement. The quiet tension in studios, homes, and social media was palpable. Collaborators who had once taken sides or acted casual were now recalibrating. One producer close to Von's inner circle said, "People think this is about a post, but it ain't. It's about who moves when nobody's watching." That's when you see what loyalty really looks like. And that observation cuts deep. The birthday message might have looked innocent to the casual eye, but in the world Von inhabited, every gesture signals intention, allegiance, and respect, or lack thereof. Private conversations leaked here and there, and each one layered more tension. One snippet captured someone close to Von's team saying, "It ain't just about what he posted. It's about timing, energy, and respect. You can't just speak in public and think that settles things." And in those few words, you get a glimpse into the delicate dance of street psychology. In this game, words, pauses, and silences all have meaning. Misread them, and relationships fracture. Understand them, and you build influence that lasts. Durk, from his side, had to navigate a minefield. Being in jail during this chaos added a level of complexity most people can't imagine. Every statement, every post, every message he sent was under scrutiny by fans, by the media, by people from both camps. One insider described it like walking a tightrope over fire. He's trying to honor Von, show respect, but also manage his own team and image. One wrong step, and it blows up. And it wasn't hypothetical. The history, the grief, and the loyalty all demanded careful management. Meanwhile, Angie became more than a grieving mother. She became the arbiter of Von's legacy, the voice that reminded everyone that respect isn't performative. She didn't need drama or public feuds. She spoke with authority, and that authority changed the game. One source close to Von's camp said, "When Angie speaks, people listen. Not because they're scared, but because they know she knows." And in this world, knowing is power. The escalation didn't just exist in words. It crept into behaviors, alliances, and subtle power shifts. People who had once been close began distancing themselves. Others leaned in. Social media, which often amplifies noise over truth, couldn't fully capture what was happening behind closed doors. In the studios, the energy changed. Beats that used to feel like creative playgrounds now carried the weight of responsibility. Every feature request, every collab invitation, even casual conversation, it all had unspoken stakes. And then there's the emotional layer that most outsiders overlook. Grief isn't linear, and loyalty isn't easy. For Durk, the loss of a close friend and protege collided with public scrutiny. For Angie, The memory of a son who could no longer defend himself collided with the responsibility of guarding his story. Every interaction, even subtle gestures, carried emotional gravity. One leaked text captured someone saying, "You don't know what it's like to watch someone speak for your son when he can't speak for himself." That weight, that accountability shapes decisions in ways the public rarely sees, but the narrative goes deeper. This is also a story about legacy as a currency. King Von's influence extends beyond his music into the psychology of loyalty, into business strategy, into the street code that governs behavior. Angie's intervention reminded everyone that a legacy is protected not just with words, but with consistency, visibility, and, when necessary, confrontation. In one leaked conversation, someone noted, "It's not enough to say you respect him. You gotta move like it." Every post, every beat, every handshake matters. That's a street lesson wrapped in a real world application of leadership. And the street code isn't just about confrontation. It's about subtle signaling, about knowing when to act and knowing when silence carries more weight than 1,000 words. Angie's calm but assertive handling of the situation demonstrated that perfectly. She didn't have to escalate. She didn't have to attack. But by speaking clearly, she reset boundaries, clarified expectations, and reminded everyone watching, including Durk, that respect is measured in action and memory, not clicks or likes. Durk's responses, measured, careful, reflective, also taught a lesson. Leadership in this world is tested when stakes are personal and public at the same time. He had to navigate grief, responsibility, perception, and loyalty simultaneously. Misstep in one domain, and it could cascade into mistrust, misunderstanding, and conflict. One insider said, he learned fast that intention doesn't equal perception. And in this world, perception often drives the moves. That's why every birthday post, every comment, every private message carried tactical importance, even beyond Von's immediate circle. This situation sent ripples across the broader hip-hop ecosystem. Artists, managers, and fans alike started analyzing it, debating it, and reflecting on their own understanding of loyalty and legacy. The takeaway was consistent. In the streets, influence is earned, respect is never assumed. And legacy carries a weight that transcends life itself. One artist reportedly said, "Watching how Angie handled it taught me more about leadership than any studio session ever could." And that sentiment captures the core lesson of this story. Conflict and escalation aside, there's a moral layer here too. Loyalty is fragile, respect is sacred, and legacy outlives everyone. The Cheat-Town rap game, with all its fame, danger, and emotion, operates under rules that aren't always visible, but are always enforced. Angie's intervention reminded everyone of those rules. You honor the dead, you move with respect, and you never underestimate the power of memory and influence. And when those rules are tested, actions, even quiet, deliberate ones, speak louder than any public statement. There's also a psychological layer that cannot be ignored. Grief changes perception. Loss magnifies meaning. And the intersection of fame and street code creates a pressure cooker for every interaction. When Von's memory is at stake, every gesture becomes a test. Every post becomes a statement. Every alliance becomes a reflection of values. And those watching, both inside the game and outside, learn from every move consciously or unconsciously. And so, as the ripples continue to spread, the story teaches multiple lessons simultaneously: how to navigate public perception, how to honor legacy, how to maintain loyalty, and how to operate in a world where every action has consequence. Durk's path forward is not just about music or fame. It's about carefully balancing responsibility, respect, and influence. Angie's stance isn't just a reaction. It's a lesson in strategy, morality, and authority. And the streets. They continue to observe, to judge, and to remember. In the end, this is a story about survival. About the pressures of leadership in a world that doesn't pause for grief. About the fragility of trust and loyalty, and the enduring power of legacy. King Von's influence persists because of his talent, his story, and the lessons embedded in his life. Lessons that Angie now carries forward with authority. And every move, every post, every word from those who remain reflects the weight of that influence. So as the saga continues, the moral is clear: loyalty must be nurtured, respect must be maintained, and legacy must be protected. Social media can amplify voices, but it cannot replace action. Fame can elevate, but it cannot substitute for integrity. And grief, while personal, always intersects with public perception when someone of influence passes too soon. Every actor in this story, Durk, Angie Von's camp, collaborators, and even fans, is learning that lesson in real time. And for those watching, there's a deeper truth. The Chi-Town rap game is more than music, more than clout, more than drama. It's a system of relationships, codes, and accountability that teaches the same lessons over and over. If you're paying attention, this story, far from over, serves as a reminder in hip-hop. In the streets and in life, every gesture carries weight. Every post carries meaning. And every voice, when grounded in truth and authority, has the power to realign narratives, enforce boundaries, and remind everyone that loyalty, respect, and legacy aren't just ideals, they're requirements. At the end of the day, this story isn't just about a post, a birthday shout-out, or who's right or wrong. It's about loyalty, legacy, and the rules that govern a world most people only see on Instagram or TikTok. Angie reminded everyone watching that King Von's story isn't just music, it's memory, it's respect, and it's a lesson in how influence, grief, and power intersect. And for Lil Durk, it's a reminder that even the best intentions can be misread when the weight of history and perception is heavy. The streets and the culture don't forgive mistakes lightly. Every gesture, every silence, every word matters. The birthday post. That was just the spark. What followed the conversations, the recalibrations, the respect reaffirmed is the story. It's a blueprint for understanding how loyalty, authority, and leadership work when fame meets grief. Angie's calm but deadly voice showed the power of measured influence, reminding the world that some lessons can't be taught in headlines or soundbites. And this isn't over. Legacy continues to demand accountability. Loyalty continues to be tested. Respect continues to be earned. The ripples of this moment will echo through the Chi-Town rap game across the studios, and even in the way fans engage with the culture. So now, it's on y'all. What do you think about this situation? Did Lil Durk handle it the right way, or did he cross a line? Is loyalty something to show publicly, or is it tested in private? Drop your thoughts below, and make sure you subscribe, because this story is far from over. And the streets are still watching every move. Remember? In hip-hop and in life, respect is earned, loyalty is sacred, and legacy lasts long after the music fades. The lesson here: pay attention, listen, and move with intention. And move with intention.